Blessings and good evening. Tonight we once again come together to practice meditation. We practice on a regular basis until it becomes part of our routine, our daily schedule. In the monastic life, we have what's called a etiquette of monastery etiquette, also known as ko wat in the Thai language. We of course have the 227 rules of a Buddhist monk, but on top of that we have many minor rules and regulations of a particular monastery, ways of doing things, etiquette, way of looking after maybe other monks, ways of looking after your robes, your lodgings, ways in which we keep medicines and use medicines. And this is a very useful way to bring up mindfulness throughout our day as well. When there is a particular standard of behavior which you set for yourself and the rest of the community is upholding also, then whenever one's behavior or mindfulness slips from that standard, it stands out. So not only do we use the monastery etiquette to change one's behavior from being that of a layperson to that of a monk, but we're also increasing our self-awareness and mindfulness throughout our day. Sometimes it's a lot to learn, and you are constantly learning about the subtleties of behavior within a monastery. Sometimes refining your etiquette more and more as your mindfulness, awareness and self-awareness increases, and also the more we get to know the daily schedule and expectations of the monastery setting. But this structure of etiquette, personal integrity, can be transferred and adapted into the lay life as well. We can set ourselves some parameters of etiquette within the household, within the family unit, small practices which help bring up mindfulness throughout our day. Maybe it can be something as small as before you leave the house to go to work, you go to your shrine room and bow 3 times to the Buddha statue, and then leave for work. And maybe when you get into the car, before you drive off, maybe you put your hands together, your palms together in the Anjali posture, and then start driving. These are small actions, but when done mindfully and regularly and consistently, then can be part of our deportment, part of our daily routine, to help bring about more mindfulness in our lives. Because as we all know, it's not as easy as saying, I'm mindful at every moment of my day. Sometimes we can convince ourselves that we are mindful, but maybe there's quite a few blind spots that we haven't noticed. And it's often with these practices that we take on this personal etiquette and ways of behavior can be almost signposts to our mindfulness. We can notice that the days that we're caught up on what we have to do at work, then maybe we forget to bow before we leave the house to go to work, because our minds are preoccupied with thinking about the future. So if you catch yourself and you get out to the car and have forgotten to bow, then go back inside, unlock the door, walk back into the shrine room, put down your bags, pay respects to the Buddha. You pick up your bags, walk out the door, lock the door, and go back to the car. This is a kind of training yourself to be more mindful. And it's in this way the monastic life has many of these indicators or points in our day which can identify whether we are being actually mindful or just going about our days in a very perfunctory way. Then when we become skillful and mindful using these practices throughout our day, we find that our mind becomes more peaceful, more tranquil, and also our behavior becomes that which is beautiful. We take on these practices to change our behavior, and often that change needs to start externally before we can change internally. we can also come into, we can notice that our minds can be stubborn as well. For example, if we go to the car and we have forgotten to bow, then stubbornness can arise, and I can't be bothered going back inside to bow to the Buddha again. I'll just re-establish my mindfulness now. But for one who really wants to practice with integrity, then we identify that thought as maybe a slippery slope to maybe even forgetting to do it every day. And for one who is really wanting to train oneself, then we learn how to put down that thought, that doubt, that stubbornness, put down our sense of self and ego, and walk back into the house and bow to the Buddha. In doing so, we're accepting the fact that we weren't mindful, which can be confronting when we have an opinion of ourselves that we are a mindful adult who knows what they're doing. But in keeping these small and relatively seemingly insignificant rules, it points out to us that maybe we have more work to do. So in practicing in this way, we can make our minds more subtle and supple, so when it comes time to meditate, we are more willing to work with our minds, accepting of the fact that we need to cultivate mindfulness. Our minds are better trained, well trained, and then they can come back to the meditation object easier. So for the next period of time, we can practice meditation together, bringing our attention to the breath or the mantra of Buddho, or whichever meditation subject you have been practicing and have found works best for you. Then for the next period of time, we can quietly practice together until the sound of the bell.